What made Icahn different wasn't just his aggression, it was his clarity. He understood that power in the market wasn't about owning the most, but about understanding the game better than anyone else. He didn't need a majority. He only needed enough to make CEOs sweat. Carl Icahn didn't seek approval, he sought results. And in doing so, he built a legendary reputation that would forever change how Wall Street views ownership, activism, and influence. Welcome to the mind of a man who didn't wait for opportunity. He engineered it. Follow this journey, and you'll never see the markets the same again. He didn't build companies. He exposed their weaknesses and turned them into billion-dollar paydays. Carl Icahn's story doesn't begin with a billion-dollar empire or a boardroom filled with trophies. It begins with a move so calculated, so disruptive, that it cracked open the armor of corporate America and rewrote the rules of capitalism. In 1978, the company was Tappan, a small, sleepy appliance maker barely worth a headline. But Carl saw more. He saw inefficiency, mismanagement, and untapped value hidden behind a wall of corporate complacency. While most investors looked away, Econ moved in quietly. No noise, no spotlight, just enough stock to matter, just enough to leverage. And then, with the precision of a predator, he made his play. He pressured Tappan to sell itself to Electrolux, a much larger European rival. To the outside world, it seemed like just another acquisition. But behind the scenes, it was a statement of power. Carl didn't invest to grow Tappan. He forced its transformation and took the profit. The value wasn't created through innovation. It was extracted through disruption. And Wall Street took notice. Icahn had proven something terrifying and brilliant. You don't need to own a company to control its fate. A few percentage points in the right hands can bring an entire boardroom to its knees. That strategy was soon given a name, greenmail. Carl would acquire a stake, threaten a takeover, and force management to buy him out at a premium. To critics, it was corporate blackmail. To Carl, it was accountability. He wasn't playing games. He was exposing weakness. If a CEO sat comfortably while shareholders bled, Carl lit the fuse under the chair. It wasn't about making friends or winning applause. It was about results. And those results came in billions. He didn't fear being hated. He feared wasted opportunity. Tappan wasn't just a deal. It was a warning shot. No longer could executives hide behind polished mission statements or silent boards. Because somewhere out there, Carl Icahn was watching, calculating, and waiting for his moment to strike. Not for headlines, not for ego, but for leverage. He wasn't chasing opportunity. He was creating it. And from that moment on, Wall Street would never sleep quite as soundly again. Carl Icahn set his sights on a new target, one far more visible, far more ambitious, and far more controversial than any he had touched before. Trans World Airlines, or TWA, wasn't just a company. It was a symbol of American prestige, of global reach, of the glamorous jet age. But to Carl, it was something else entirely, a bloated, inefficient giant ripe for disruption. While the world admired the airline's international roots and polished image, Icahn was pouring through its financials, dissecting the debt, the underperforming assets, the misaligned incentives. He wasn't interested in flying planes. He was interested in unlocking trapped value, and if that meant gutting the airline, so be it. Icahn launched a hostile takeover. The board resisted. Pilots and unions protested. Wall Street watched in suspense. But Carl was relentless. He didn't charm. He didn't compromise. He forced. He won. Once in control, he did what few had dared. He stripped TWA for parts. He sold off its most valuable assets, routes to London, planes, terminals, and used the cash to pay off the debt he had used to acquire it in the first place. It was a classic leveraged buyout, but with Carl's brutal twist. He left behind a hollowed-out airline barely able to function while walking away with a personal fortune. To critics, it was cannibalism, sacrificing long-term health for short-term gain. To Carl, it was a correction, a lesson, a ruthless reminder that sentimentality has no place in capitalism. You don't run a business with nostalgia, he once said. You run it with numbers. And yet, the TWA deal cemented his legend. It was brutal. It was brilliant. It was pure icon. He had taken on a national airline, defeated an entrenched board, and rewired the balance sheet in his favor. Love him or hate him, the message was clear. No company was too iconic to escape accountability. But beneath the financial maneuvers, something deeper was at play. Icahn was testing the boundaries of the system itself. He was asking hard questions. What is a company's purpose? Who does it serve? And when leadership becomes complacent, does anyone have the right or the courage to tear it down? TWA was more than a deal. It was a declaration, a signal that Carl Icahn had crossed from financier to force of nature, from investor to insurgent, from Wall Street player to Wall Street myth. Sometimes, all it takes is 5% if you know exactly where and how to strike. Carl Icahn didn't need to own the whole castle to control the throne. While others chased majority ownership and full buyouts, Carl mastered a subtler, more psychological art: influence without dominance. In boardrooms across America, executives weren't just watching his moves, they were dreading them. It started with a stake, sometimes small, 5%, maybe 7, just enough to get noticed and to trigger a clause, a regulation, or a headline. Then came the letter, public, sharp, and often brutal. In it, Carl would accuse CEOs of mismanagement, bloated costs, poor capital allocation, or worse, indifference to shareholder value. The media picked it up. Stockholders listened. Boards began to sweat. Carl didn't need control of the company. He needed control of the narrative. And he was a master of it. He weaponized perception. If a company refused to act, he'd go on CNBC and lay out the entire case in simple, brutal logic. This isn't personal, he'd say. It's business. But make no mistake, it felt very personal to the men in charge. He painted them as obstacles to profit. And when the public believed him, the boardroom often followed. Then came the proxy battles. Carl would nominate his own directors, rally shareholders behind him, and push for sweeping changes, spin-offs, restructurings, stock buybacks, leadership overhauls, all without a takeover. Just pressure, just precision, just fear. This wasn't brute force. It was chess. He used SEC rules, shareholder rights, and corporate bylaws like weapons. A well-timed lawsuit here, a public letter there, and soon the balance of power shifted. CEOs realized they had a choice: fight Icahn and risk a PR war, or make concessions and live another day. That's how he forced changes at Texaco, Phillips Petroleum, and USX, massive corporations that had long operated with impunity. But now they had to answer to someone who didn't sit in their boardroom, yet controlled its temperature. Icahn understood something fundamental. Most CEOs aren't fearless. They're political. They want peace. They want approval. And they hate public conflict. Carl exploited that weakness and made it profitable. This was the art of the hostile whisper. You don't need to own the room if everyone inside believes you could burn it down. That was Carl's true power. Not just ownership, not just influence, but the credible threat of disruption, executed with perfect timing, backed by relentless logic. Wall Street had seen raiders before. But Carl Icahn didn't just raid companies. He rewired them. One letter at a time, one headline at a time, one shaken CEO at a time. I'm not against management. I'm against bad management. By the time the two Heinzungs rolled around, Carl Icahn was no longer just the feared raider of the 30s. He was something far more potent, a rebranded force, sharper and more strategic. He wasn't just breaking companies apart anymore. He was reshaping them. And Wall Street had to learn a new label for him: activist investor. But don't let the title fool you. This wasn't activism for its own sake. This was calculated warfare, with spreadsheets instead of swords. Carl had discovered something powerful. The modern corporation was bloated, complacent, and terrified of confrontation. And he was ready to exploit every flaw. Apple was the first major battlefield. In 2013, when most investors admired Apple from a distance, Carl bought a stake and fired the first shot, a now famous tweet that shook the market. We currently have a large position in Apple. We believe the company to be extremely undervalued. Spoke to Tim Cook. More to come. More did come. He demanded a massive stock buyback, not because Apple was failing, but because it was hoarding cash. Carl believed the company was under-leveraged and under-returning capital. He didn't want to run Apple. He just wanted it to think like him. Within months, Apple initiated one of the largest buyback programs in corporate history, and its market cap soared. Carl pocketed billions and walked away. Next came eBay. He called for one thing: spin-off PayPal. The board resisted. Carl went public, wrote brutal open letters, and rallied shareholders. He argued PayPal would grow faster alone, without the weight of eBay's legacy business. He was right. The split happened. PayPal thrived. Carl cashed out with a smile. Then Netflix. In 2012, he quietly bought in when shares were in the $50. People thought the company was a risky bet. Carl thought it was misunderstood. When Netflix started surging, he didn't call for a breakup. He simply let the stock speak. 2 years later, he sold for over $300 per share, earning over $1 billion. No board fights, no lawsuits, just pure, patient profit. This was a new Carl. He didn't need to be loud to be lethal. He didn't need to fight to win. He had evolved from the fire starter to the architect, from the raider who dismantled companies to the strategist who forced them to unlock value from within. But one thing hadn't changed: fear. CEOs still flinched when they saw his name on the shareholder registry. Boards still hired legal teams the moment he tweeted. Because when Carl got involved, something was going to change. Fast. This was the era of the quiet storm, where a few words from Icahn could move markets, force restructurings, or unseat entire management teams. Not with a hostile bid, but with logic, leverage, and lethal timing. Carl once said, "Activism is just capitalism, holding a mirror to itself." And in that mirror, he showed America's biggest corporations what they were afraid to see: that sometimes the real danger isn't from outsiders, it's from the insiders who forgot who they serve. I'm not buying companies. I'm buying the waste inside companies. Carl Icahn's approach to investing goes far beyond the numbers on a balance sheet. While many call themselves value investors, Carl operates on a different plane, blending deep value investing with relentless activism. To him, a stock isn't just a ticker symbol. It's a puzzle, often one riddled with hidden assets, distorted models, and untapped potential. Most investors see what's on the surface: earnings, debt, cash flow. Carl digs deeper. He hunts for the intangible, the overlooked intellectual property, underutilized real estate, mispriced divisions, and management failures that blindside traditional valuation methods. He believes the financial statements themselves can be deceptive, masking inefficiencies, poor capital allocation, or conservative accounting that buries the company's true worth. To see real value, you have to tear through the facade. This is where his activism comes in. Unlike passive investors who wait for management to do the right thing, Carl uses his position, sometimes just a small stake, to push for uncovering and unlocking that hidden value. He demands restructuring, spin-offs, dividend payouts, and leadership changes, all designed to realign the company's trajectory with its true potential. His method is surgical. He doesn't want to dismantle for destruction's sake. He wants to reveal the diamond beneath the rough. This combination of deep value analysis and activist pressure is what sets Carl apart. He once said, "I don't invest in the company I see. I invest in the company it could be if someone had the courage to fix what's broken." In every investment, he looks for a catalyst, a point of pressure or change that can release that trapped value. Sometimes it's a hostile letter. Sometimes it's a quiet negotiation. But always, it's about turning latent potential into real, measurable growth. For Carl Icahn, value is not static. It's a living, breathing opportunity, waiting for the right spark to ignite. Markets are irrational. My job is to exploit that irrationality and profit from it. Carl Icahn's approach to risk is not about courting danger, but about identifying where the system fails, the inefficiencies that others ignore or fear. For him, wealth is built not by gambling on uncertainty, but by carefully calibrating the risk-reward ratio to tip the odds decisively in his favor. Unlike many who see risk as something to avoid, Carl views it as a mathematical equation. When the potential reward far outweighs the downside, that's where he moves in. His edge lies in spotting those rare opportunities where the market's fears or complacency distort true value. Take Warren Buffett, known for his patient buy and hold value investing, focused on long-term business fundamentals and low-risk bets. Or Ray Dalio, who masters diversification and risk parity to hedge against economic cycles. Carl, on the other hand, thrives on systemic inefficiencies, weaknesses in corporate governance, mismanagement, or structural inertia that create mispriced assets. His activism is a way to unlock value hidden behind these flaws, rather than simply waiting for the market to correct itself. He once said, "I'm not a gambler. I'm an opportunist who waits for the game to tilt in my favor." This mindset allows him to enter deals others shy away from: hostile takeovers, proxy battles, and aggressive restructuring. Because he understands that true risk isn't in volatility or uncertainty, it's in staying passive while value slips away. By exploiting the system's flaws and inefficiencies, Carl turns perceived risk into calculated opportunity. And that's how he makes his fortune. Not by chasing risk, but by capitalizing on its mispricing. When you control the capital, you control the game. Carl Icahn's true power doesn't come just from his aggressive activism or razor-sharp investment instincts. It flows from his ability to control capital itself. At the heart of his empire is Icahn Enterprises, a diversified conglomerate that acts less like a typical holding company and more like a well-oiled machine driven by strategic vision and financial discipline. Founded in 1987, Icahn Enterprises is Icahn's flagship vehicle, a public company through which he deploys capital across industries ranging from energy and automotive to real estate and home fashion. But unlike most conglomerates that grow chaotically, Carl structures his empire with meticulous precision. Each move is calculated, aimed at maximizing shareholder value while maintaining ultimate control. His mastery lies in structuring power and controlling cash flow. Econ Enterprises isn't merely a portfolio of assets, it's a command center. Carl uses it to direct capital where it will generate the highest return and to flex influence over the companies he invests in, whether it's buying back shares to boost stock price, issuing dividends to reward investors, or spinning off divisions to unlock trapped value. Every financial maneuver serves a larger strategic purpose. Through share repurchases, Icahn reduces the number of outstanding shares, effectively increasing his control and the value of remaining shares. Dividends provide steady income and signal confidence to the market. Spin-offs allow undervalued business units to operate independently and flourish without the constraints of conglomerate overhead. What truly sets Econ Enterprises apart is its long-term strategy. Carl isn't chasing short-term gains. He's building a durable empire capable of weathering market storms and capitalizing on new opportunities. The company's diversified holdings provide stability, while its financial tools offer flexibility to act decisively when chances arise. In essence, controlling capital means controlling the rules of the game. Carl Icahn's empire is a testament to how financial power, when wielded with intelligence and discipline, can shape markets, influence management decisions, and create lasting wealth. Money doesn't create power on its own. Strategy is the hand that wields the knife. Carl Icahn's journey reveals a profound truth. Money by itself is just a tool, but strategy turns that tool into real power. For Icahn, financial muscle alone never guaranteed influence. Instead, it was the intelligent and calculated use of leverage, both financial and political, that allowed him to shape outcomes far beyond the size of his wallet. Leverage is more than debt or capital. It's about creating pressure points that force change. Carl expertly employs financial leverage to amplify his voice in corporate boardrooms, but his influence doesn't stop there. His connections and advisory roles, especially during the Trump administration, show how political leverage can open doors and sway policy decisions in ways pure capital cannot. Though never an official government appointee, Icahn served as a key informal advisor to President Trump, wielding his influence to shape economic policies, deregulation efforts, and trade stances. This unique position highlights how soft power, the art of persuasion and negotiation, complements hard financial muscle in the pursuit of lasting impact. Icahn's success offers vital lessons about power. It's not enough to just have money. You must understand how to use it, how to negotiate, pressure, and persuade. The most formidable weapon is a strategic mind that wields money like a scalpel, precise and purposeful. This approach allowed Icahn to become more than a wealthy investor. He became a force that boards, CEOs, and politicians respected and sometimes feared. Ultimately, the true power behind Icahn's empire is not his billions, but his strategic vision and ability to execute complex deals where financial acumen meets political savvy. He was hated, criticized, yet in the end, Wall Street learned to follow him. Carl Icahn's legacy is one of transformation and rebellion. A relentless activist investor who shook the very foundations of corporate America, he rewrote the rules of engagement on Wall Street. His battles, often controversial and polarizing, paved the way for a new breed of investors who refused to stay silent in the face of corporate inefficiency. Icahn's influence transcends his personal fortune. He sparked the rise of the activist investor movement, inspiring countless others to stand up, challenge management, and unlock hidden value in companies worldwide. Today, this style of investing is a cornerstone of modern markets, reshaping corporate governance and shareholder rights. But beyond profits and power, Carl's story carries a deeper message. Investing isn't just about getting rich, it's about protecting yourself from being manipulated by the ignorance or negligence of others. Knowledge, strategy, and vigilance are your greatest weapons. As we close this journey through the life and mind of a legend, remember this: the greatest investors are not those who avoid conflict, but those who dare to disrupt the status quo with intelligence and courage. If you found value in this story and want to dive deeper into the mindset that drives successful trading and investing, make sure to follow Trading Mindset Lab, your source for insights, strategies, and inspiration to elevate your financial journey.